Hello, welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every Planet of the Apes movies 1 minute at a time. I am your host, Todd. Sitting across from me, across from me is my friend
Sean. Hello, I'm not accosting him.
He accosts me on a regular occasion, but not today. And continuing on this week, we have Richard from Zeus Comics with us.
Hello.
Hey,
Are you okay
Richard.
being Richard from Zeus Comics?
That is what I am known for. Some people actually call me Zeus, but
Do they really?
It's very odd. Yes.
It's I've always enjoyed the fact that as I see Zeus in the stuff around here,
You think about
because
story?
have you ever been to Zeus Comics? Because they know I'm a nerd.
Right.
They don't, Sean and I being friends, but he also lives here and I live far north of here. I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, I have. And it's like, I know the guy that owns that. That's
I know.
pretty awesome.
I know that
I
person.
really get a kick when I wear a Zeus T-shirt out and somebody go, "Do you work at Zeus Comics?" I go, "No, but I know the owner. He's a friend of mine. He's one of my besties."
So we are basically in minute 42 is what we call it. Technically, is that right?
Yes.
Minute 41 through 42.
Right.
Starts with Zaya saying, man can be taught a few simple tricks, nothing more, and ends with a downtrodden tailor looking at the floor dejected as Zayas leaves through a very odd side door.
Yes, and this week might get more sloppy as we go because we're drinking beer.
Yes, we are drinking beers, and let's consider I've had one.
I'm on my third, I guess.
Holy crap.
I've had one and a tiny sip.
And these are IPAs, so by the end of it,
We may be driving Sean home.
yes, we'll at least call him an Uber.
There we
Yes.
go. All right, so at this point, we have 2 living humans, 2 assumed dead, a shrewdness of apes, and a gaggle of humanoids.
A gaggle. Well,
I don't
so
know
it's a
what they-
gaggle of humanoids, but that was a gaggle of humanoids that we've seen in this scene. We have
When they were doing the fruit and they were being hunted down, and so we know that there were a bunch that lived. They were all, half of them were shot or whatever.
I did find that fascinating. So they did this hunt, and I know this is not the specific
okay.
No,
minute.
it's not.
And we're in the jail cell now. We've
Yeah.
got Taylor, the unknown woman, and 1 or 2 other people still in the cell because
assuming-
they haven't
yeah,
changed
some-
the locale yet.
Yeah,
No.
I'm assuming
Right.
they're being saved for brain
Sugar
surgery or
cube
whatever.
monkey,
Yeah.
other sugar cube corn monkey.
Yes.
Sorry, sugar
Corn
cube
cob.
human, corn cob human,
yes.
unnamed woman, and Taylor in this jail cell, in these jail cells, and when they were, and you mentioned this in the last minute.
Mhm.
You were talking about the fact that they were Zaya says they robbed their crops and their.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
that
that's
wrong?
actually okay. So
Well,
that's
a little
this
bit in the
minute.
future, yeah.
That's in this minute, and I know you have the script, but I have it here, and if y'all are cool with it, I'm going to read this quote
Yes,
from
yes,
because
yes. Oh, it's in this minute, isn't it?
the
Okay,
majority of this minute is a great Dr. Zaya speech. And I couldn't find. I looked to see which of the screenwriters wrote this.
Mhm.
I could not find when it came in any of the iterations of the script. However, the speech is, Dr. Zira, I must caution you, experimental brain surgery of these creatures is one thing, and I'm all in favor of it. But your behavior studies are another matter. To suggest that we can learn anything about the simian nature from the study of man is sheer nonsense. Why man is a nuisance. He eats up his food supply in the forest, then migrates to our green belts and ravages our crops. The sooner he's exterminated, the better. It's the question of simian survival.
So it brings up a point. The humans that we saw were clearly in their cornfields,
Mhm.
right? And we saw them
Eating
eat
off the
fruit
plants or
as
whatever.
well.
Yes.
And so the apes show up and they do a mixture of things. They appear to be killing some of them and capturing others.
Mhm.
So I really didn't understand what they were doing. Like, were they rounding up certain ones? Were they?
We kind of talked about that, and when you get back to that minute, if you really break down the action of it, it looks like they've constructed corn crops and trees specifically
To capture them.
because those apes are coming in from the side and
Right.
the top. They're attacking. It's the same way you would do cattle.
They're
You
driving
don't just
them in,
drive
yeah.
at cattle veer off to the sides if you don't surround them, if you don't pinpoint them.
So these are the lucky few that are being captured for experimentation.
And I guess
the
the
rest
others
have
are
been killed?
hunted for sport.
Have been killed.
Or
Yeah.
meat, or who knows? I don't
Ooh.
know what they do. Well, they're apes.
Well, we don't-
They're
we-
different species.
Is that what their makeup with their double jaws as they chew the
There
human
you go.
bones and everything a little bit better? But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just they mentioned specifically the rating of food in this particular sentence, and I didn't understand why they were capturing them and or killing them. Like, I didn't understand why there seemed to be two purposes going on.
I agree with you, and I don't know how to answer that. It's very convenient that this is Zaius' take on this. Does this convenience go back that he is suppressing something? That he doesn't want to allow them to be anything more than a nuisance? Because is it not true that the worst, what is this pointing out? It's probably tapping into a bit of a racist type mentality of that's all they're good for.
Right.
And so if I'm keeping you within constraints that make you exactly what I say, then hopefully you'll never break out of it. He's afraid of something. He's afraid that they will find out more about what the human plight is.
So at this point, we've Dr. Zaius has come in. We've now found that he's being dismissive of humans in general, and but is he for them being captured or against them? I mean, Sean, not having watched this, what would you think that is he a naysayer?
Oh, no, he's definitely for them being captured, but only in the sense that he wants to use them for experimentation.
So
he wants to do the brain surgery and then get rid of them, to the point where I thought Zaius and Taylor were maybe somehow related because they're both massive assholes.
Is that a gene that's passed on, the whole evolution thing?
Exactly, from orangutan, from bright eyes to orangutan. So Zira, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is the voice of compassion. She's the voice of science. Does Dr. Zaius at this point strike you as a man of science?
There's a lot of dogma going on with him.
A little bit more government with him.
Yeah.
A little more government.
Rather than science. It's like, all right, I have this agenda. It needs to be fulfilled whether or not the facts fit my agenda.
That's a good point.
So we talked about Zira possibly being the focus of the voice that we wanted to hear as the audience, right? That was the shift from the last minute. But now we're moving past Charlton Heston as being our perspective and possibly being Zira being our perspective.
Yeah.
And now we've got this voice coming in, this voice of doubt.
Dissent,
this voice of anger, of hostility. So he's coming in as what is the term I'm looking for that's not too charged?
He is he wants to build a border wall.
He's coming in as the I want to say supremacist, but I'm not necessarily sure that that's the strength that I want to go with. Is
authoritarian?
Maybe.
Now, and what's kind of fun, and I made this note, this speech is shot beautifully because there are two human hands reaching out for something.
Trying to grasp something.
As he talks about their neediness and what man wants to do, the visual tells us exactly the same thing. There's always a hand asking for more. And so are they making making a comment about society at that time that too many people, that man doesn't ask. Man doesn't do anything but give me more. They don't give back to humanity. And when you begin to think of the turmoil that was going on with race, and we talked off mic about, how they basically push sexuality aside. Women are secondary in this world, but
that'll be in you can talk about the next minute, I think.
Yes,
for sure.
So, but you start thinking about it, what he's commenting on. It's one of the few times in this film where the shots, where you truly have got a director's moment, where someone's saying something and the visual actually adds something more to it. So, is it? This is one of my problems with the films. Watching it like this, it seems like there's a lot of grandstanding of our screenwriters wanting to comment so much on society that it doesn't make sense from a character standpoint why they say what they say. Because Zaius, if you look at him, and he is that person who wants to suppress man because he's afraid of what becomes of man. He ultimately knows something.
Right.
And is his fear suppressing everyone else's curiosity? And is that a commentary in and of itself, that fear pervades a society and represses the society the moment you let fear come in?
Well, at this point, he has no reason to think that men or man,
or at least Heston,
has any value. Well, no, I mean, he's right. I mean, at this point,
they're just
the humans that they've met just steal their crops.
True.
That they've done nothing. They've shown them nothing to make them believe.
Does that mean he's been waiting for someone like Taylor to come along? That he was expecting someone to come along that was more than the savage man?
Well, I mean, he's being extremely dismissive. I mean, there's stuff in later minutes that we can't talk about because Sean hasn't seen them, and we're definitely jumping ahead.
Damn you, Sean.
We're definitely jumping ahead. But I mean, he mentioned specifically that Dr. Zira, experimental brain surgery on these creatures is one thing. I'm all for it, right?
Mhm.
So Dr. Zira is leading these experiments, right? Not Zaius.
Right.
And Zaius has a very pessimistic view of what what man is. And so far, nothing has proven him wrong.
You know, there's a commentary in that the government, it's kind of, God, I'm going to probably piss off people who are listening, but the government now, when you have certain situations where they're telling you there's fake news, there's all these kind of things, and you're trying to suppress the truth because it becomes easier for you to rule.
Correct.
And wow, were they so
demonize-
prescient back then that they knew that was exactly
Well,
where
of course.
things like this?
Well, that's nothing new. I mean, people were demonizing different ethnicities back in the 60s.
I guess so.
So if this is a comment on society in the 60s, if you're an African American in the 60s, you say that if you're a white elitist and saying that a black person is not as smart and they don't feel pain the same way that a white person does.
Yeah.
So the human isn't as smart as the ape, and they're only good for one thing. And so, yeah.
So
that's
Zaius
nothing
is
new.
truly the establishment.
Yeah.
He is the establishment that we all hate. And
Yeah,
and
he
you're
is the
taking-
establishment, yeah.
So if we've got Dr. Zira as us,
Mhm.
As
Taylor-
the voice of compassion, the voice of science.
yes, Taylor is
Right.
the alienated
As a
being
liberal, yeah.
who doesn't know where he belongs, and suddenly here is the government. Here is the suppression that occurs.
Yeah, in order to maintain power.
Man, good Lord. Oh my God, we're breaking down Planet of the Apes.
Like, nobody has ever seen this movie.
But
before.
to,
Yeah,
but to this point, and again, we're kind of moving a little forward. If I were just reading his speech as is and having watched the movie up to this point, if reading his speech
Mhm.
and not having known Taylor prior to this moment,
Yes.
everything Dr. Zaius says at this moment is true.
Yes.
Yes, it is true.
The humans that he's encountered
Or pests.
are pests.
Which, we're going to have you back on when it becomes a little bit toward the end.
Right.
Where
We
we
can
begin
talk
to-
a little bit further because there's a lot more that happens.
There's a lot more that happens. We don't jump ahead minutes, but because you guys are such good friends, I want you here when some of this at least.
When we start to get to some of the stuff that happens later on.
Yes. So we have to have you back on at that
Book him
point.
for the future minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead and
Okay, I'll go
plan
ahead.
that out.
I'll
We'll
figure
plan
out.
for 700 years in the future. Right?
Yes.
What was the time
God,
frame for this?
please no.
Oh, I think we assumed that it was at least 1,000, but there was a mistake maybe because of the crash, or it might be 1,500 years. in the future.
The woman after Sharon died. He just
Oh,
got a
yeah.
beard.
Yeah, yeah, the weird paste on beards.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are bad beards. I did notice
Uh-huh.
that. I was like, oof.
Oh, yeah.
That was the last minute. That was Charlton's request, by the way.
He
He
wanted a
said,
beard.
if I've been sleeping so long, I'd
You
have
know,
a beard.
their fingernails don't grow or anything, but the
No,
beard.
the
yeah.
beard would happen. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a man of. I'm 50.
Mm-hmm.
My nose hairs would grow in that time too. I mean, everything would grow. You
Oh,
would be a
my
man.
ear
Oh, I know about your hair.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, we're not talking about that now. No, we're not going down that vanity road.
So it's one of those that, well, you know what? They had the simplified spaceship with the 3 buttons that anywhere they went, 3 buttons controlled everything, and they had cars strapped seatbelts.
We'll
Yeah.
get there. I mean, we look at that old technology.
Yes.
We think about our technology with the fact that we still use keyboards,
Uh-huh.
we use mice, we use visual displays versus
Mhm.
just the actual circuits and buttons.
Right.
I think that's where we're going to move. We're going to back to buttons again at some point, just because they'll
And it's going to be like you
that
have 3
intuitive.
buttons that literally, it almost is like what you think and you hit the right one.
It'll
And
be
it
that
goes.
intuitive. Yeah.
So maybe they had ear trimmers
Maybe.
inside there and we just didn't see them.
Little nanobots. They have nanobots. We don't see them.
Don't know.
Wow.
Magical nanobots.
We have fixed Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I know Taylor can't talk, but can he not do anything to demonstrate besides? He can't do some sort of basic math of, I have one thing, I put this here, that's 2, and then pick up 2 other things to show, hey, look, I know 2 plus 2 equals...
I will go back on my earlier minute and say that he's in an alien society. He understands
English.
everything that they're saying.
They're speaking English, so...
They're speaking English. He understands
That's
everything.
true.
He may not want to reveal everything about him